No, it's anime and manga. It was premiered in Japan, and it spread to the United States like a wildfire wave. And here, tonight, we have the opening ceremonies of the thing that would always be known as the beginning of a tradition, we hope. Katsucon each.
Okay. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel.
We interrupt this program for an important news announcement.
Chat, I am interrupting our regularly scheduled video real quick. So we still haven't heard anything about the Katsucon hotel opening. Usually this goes out in July, but nothing has been released from Katsucon at the time of recording the video. We'll go more in depth about it later in the video, so stay tuned. But any updates after posting this video will be added in the description. Alright, let's get into this mess.
So, Katsucon 2025. This was a really memorable convention for a lot of different reasons. From burst water lines in the artist alley that rained gray water on the attendees and artists, to a venue that seemed increasingly weary of cosplayers and photography. The weekend was riddled with challenges. Convention hallways felt drained of energy, but packed full of guests, and programming definitely left something to be desired. Katsucon is now, in my opinion, facing the ultimate catch-22. How to maintain relevancy when the only thing that really sets Katsucon apart from other cons is the convention center itself. In this video, I'm going to go over the history of Katsucon, Katsucon now, and where Katsucon might be headed in the future. So come along with me as we delve into the context of this iconic cosplay convention. Since its founding in 1995, Katsucon has had to overcome its fair share of difficulties. Things that make a flooded artist alley seem almost minor in comparison, but it has persevered because of the passion of the attendees and the people running the convention. So the very first Katsucon was held at a Holiday Inn in Virginia Beach. It was small, scrappy, and it only had about 500 people in attendance, so very small convention. But the event grew really, really fast. It actually tripled in attendance by the fourth year, and that kind of forced Katsucon to bounce around to a bunch of different venues. They were really trying to support and encourage that ever-growing audience, but each new location really brought its own fair share of struggles. So in 2002, Katsucon hit a membership cap of around 7,000 attendees and even tried to move to the Baltimore Marriott waterfront, which was close to where the old Otakon convention was held. But that fell through and the con ended up going back to Crystal City. The following year, Mother Nature also decided to join in. During the infamous blizzard of 2023, hundreds of attendees were snowed into Katsucon for days. With roads shut down, Katsucon staff and guests scrambled to keep everyone entertained. Impromptu panels, kind of sounds like a fun kind of brand of chaos. Being snowed in at a convention would not be my worst time. But venue woes kind of continued. In 2005, Katsucon split between two Crystal City hotels, one of which had construction going on. So imagine trying to enjoy an anime panel when the first two floors of your hotel had absolutely no heat in February. Cosplay is warm, but it is not that warm. Dealers' room lines stretched endlessly, and panels overflowed into regular hotel rooms. Not exactly the sleek, organized convention experience. But the mid-2000s didn't get much better. At the Omni Shoreham, crowd control became a nightmare. By 2029, the con returned to the Hyatt Regency Crystal City, but even with a cap of 6,000 attendees, overcrowding was just unavoidable. Katsucon fielded an army of 300 volunteers just to try to keep the event running. Finally, In 2010, Katsucon made the big move to the National Gaylord Harbor. It's now extremely iconic home. But even that debut was a little rocky. The timing lined up perfectly with another huge blizzard. So traffic was gridlocked, badges couldn't even be delivered to the venue until Friday, and registration became a frozen nightmare, both literally and figuratively. In the years that followed, Katsucon's problems weren't always weather-related. In 2010, there was actually a really serious incident involving an offender that led to the convention announcing that it would start checking all registrants against offender databases. And then in 2011, backlash over a poorly worded fan art policy forced public revision. In 2012, the con ran out of badges altogether after attendance boomed past expectancy. And in 2013, crowding in the dealer's room got so bad that staff literally was stopping people at the door and turning them away. The hits kind of kept coming. Snowstorms in 2014 that stranded travelers, registration bottlenecks, delayed masquerade, dress code controversies, and finally, the total cancellation of Katsucon 2021 during the COVID-19 pandemic. By 2022, masks and vaccine requirements kept the event going, but not without tension. And 2020, right when the COVID pandemic was starting out, I actually attended my very first Katsucon. Katsucon has really always been a mix of magic and mayhem. And there does seem to be a clear history of some lack of planning, or maybe lack of looking ahead from Katsucon. Which brings us all the way to 2025, where the Artist Alley pipe bursting just was the latest entry in a long list of legendary Katsucon horror stories. Still, despite all these issues, Katsucon persists and grows. And in my opinion, sometimes it feels like it's growing in spite of itself. But let's go back to Katsucon moving to the Gaylord. Once Katsucon moved to the Gaylord National Resort and Convention Center in 2010, it marked more than just a change of address. This move reshaped the convention completely. The Gaylord is huge and elegant and architecturally dramatic. There's big glass atriums, fountains, the gazebo, multi-level walkways, golden decor, and a lot of open space, and some of the best natural lighting I've ever seen at a convention center. Suddenly, areas around the lobby, atrium, and gazebo became stages themselves, natural backdrops for cosplayers and photographers. And because of this, cosplay really stepped into the spotlight in a brand new way. What had once been smaller, more insider hobbyist costumes grew more ambitious. Full armor builds, elaborate props, massive group meetups, all were more visible and more celebrated. The venue's design and prestige pulled in people who treated cosplay as a craft, art, or even career. Icons like Yaya Han, Linda Lee, Jessica Nigri, Leon Shiro, Stella Chu, Cowbutt Crunchies, Holly Wolf, like all the big cosplay names have graced Katsucon's halls. Some not just as attendees, but as featured guests and creators, elevating the event's status in the cosplay community. And people don't just wear cosplay to Katsucon, they show off cosplay. Katsucon is the place to wear that cosplay that you've worked on all year, with big name social media coverage. Cosplay gatherings like the Cosplay Couture Gala, previously known as the Cosplay Met Gala. Honestly, just the ambience and lighting of the Gaylord itself contributed all to this cosplay culture. But that visibility came with a lot of tension. More photographers meant more crowding in the picturesque spots. Some of the rules tightened too. Prop inspection policies, dress code enforcement, what counts as professional equipment, where you can shoot, what props you can carry. The Gaylord spaces are beautiful, but subject to stricter hotel and convention center rules, and that sometimes clashes with what the cosplayers want to do. So the move to the Gaylord wasn't just about solving space shortage. It helped create a cosplay culture at Katsucon that's more polished, more visible, and more high stakes. But those gains came with a trade-off in logistics, rules, space, and community expectations. It changed both the look and the feel of Katsucon. The Gaylord, in my opinion, now defines Katsucon. You cannot separate the identity of this convention from the gazebo, the atrium, the indoor garden, the cascading natural light. Thanks in part to this venue, Katsucon has become the cosplay convention. But what used to set the convention apart and lead to such growth is now, in my opinion, slowly starting to strangle this convention. Now, before we start the next part of this video, please keep in mind that while I'll be dropping some statistics and fact, a lot of this video is made up of my own personal opinions and experiences. My intention is never going to be to make someone feel badly or negatively about a convention. And if you've attended Katsucon and loved it, that's awesome. I really want people to go and enjoy conventions and enjoy themselves. Everyone likes something different at anime conventions, and truly the only way you're really going to be able to understand Katsucon is to go and attend yourself. And if you haven't already, I really encourage you to do so. It is a unique convention experience unlike any I've had before. And I love Katsucon. I love all these anime conventions. I just see a pattern emerging that I think we should start to talk about. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into Katsucon now. First things first, Katsucon is not very transparent. The last year that attendance numbers were officially published was 2016, and they had around 17,000 attendees. Since then, the con has chosen to not officially publish those numbers and keep them more hidden, less accessible, and that has really frustrated a lot of fans, including me, when I was trying to do the research for this. But the reasoning really isn't too hard to guess. The Gaylord has a finite capacity, and anyone who's been there knows how packed the hallways and the atrium can get. Admitting just how close they're pushing those limits could alarm the venue, trigger stricter caps, or even force price hikes that would hit attendees. There's also the fact that Katsucon is nonprofit and volunteer run, so they don't really have the same incentive as some of the corporate conventions to really brag about numbers for like sponsorships. But here's the thing, the numbers don't really tell the full story anyway. Katsucon takes place inside a hotel with open doors. That means not everyone roaming the atrium or posing for photos actually bought a badge. Some stay in the hotel without registering, but many more just simply show up in cosplay to take pictures at the Gaylord's iconic glass atrium. There's so much of the convention that happens outside the badge wall. You can go to gatherings in cosplay in the atrium, no badge needed. But because Katsucon is so cosplay driven, ghosting the con has become part of its culture. For a lot of people, the big draw of Katsucon isn't panels, it's not programming, it's the photo shoots, the meetups, the chance to show off their costume in that legendary space, and none of that technically requires a badge. If you just want to go take pictures in a pretty atrium, you can just go take pictures in a pretty atrium. So while the official stats are not released, and who knows if they'll ever be released again, the unofficial numbers kind of tell their own story. Pre-reg for 2023 hit 15,000 by December, with estimates of final attendance closer to 25,000. At the 2025 closing ceremonies, from what I could find online, people going through the event, it did seem like the staff confirmed 23,076 memberships were sold. But you know, throw in the ghost attendees in the atriums and the hotel rooms and the real number of bodies in the Gaylord during Katsucon, especially in the like outside atrium, they were probably way higher. And if you've ever been inside the Gaylord during peak hours, you know exactly what I mean. The atrium transforms into a wall-to-wall crowd of cosplayers, photographers, some hotel guests who have no idea what they're walking into. I've seen escalators backed up so badly, people literally couldn't step on or off without waiting. Crowds blocked the moving walkways. elevators a nightmare. It's really common to see frazzled, exhausted volunteers just yelling to be heard over the din, trying to get everyone to keep moving. One of the strategies that Katsucon has tried is setting up velvet ropes in areas that used to be free flow, with badge checks popping up occasionally, but not actually consistently, around high demand spaces like the gazebo floor. Especially at night. Saturday night was the first time that I saw someone checking badges to get into the gazebo. That's led to these snaking lines just to access popular photo spots. The atrium walkways and hallways narrow as people stop for photos, only to get stuck behind other people doing the exact same thing. And mobility, forget about it. Attendees with wheelchairs or crutches often say it's not just uncomfortable to navigate, it's nearly impossible. And that's where things start to get a little bit dicey, because the crowding at Katsucon isn't just an inconvenience. There are times where it can actually feel kind of dangerous. Like, I personally have been stuck in a human traffic jam for like 10 minutes just trying to get across the gazebo floor. And it was scary. I was scared. I literally turned to Kat and was like, I'm scared because it's so crowded. Attendees have reported being physically pushed along by crowds, and there are more than a few stories of people fainting from overcrowding and exhaustion. Fire marshals have actually been called before in the past at Katsucon, and then when you consider that you're in cosplay, some of these huge builds with wings, armors, or anything bulky, like, forget about it. And again, it's really important to emphasize the mobility needs. Navigating through the narrow hallways, if you're in a wheelchair, if you have crutches or a cane, it's hard. And every year there are rumors, every year there are a lot of rumors about Katsucon, but one of the reoccurring ones are fire marshals and capacity checks. And honestly, looking at the crowd, you kind of start to wonder if there might be truth to that rumor. It's part of this atmosphere, this mix of excitement and claustrophobia, that makes Katsucon both breathtaking and overwhelming. For some, it's the ultimate cosplay stage, but for others, you really get to a point where it starts to feel like survival mode. But here's the thing. The convention doesn't exactly help itself. So the artist alley, the dealer's hall, and the badge pickup area are all crammed together in a single hallway, while entire floors of the convention space sit nearly empty. It creates this strange dynamic where some spaces are slammed to dangerous capacity, and then you turn a hallway and it's just completely empty. More than once, I've had to just duck outside a random door to escape the crush of bodies. And honestly, it's so odd because it feels like it's by Katsucon's own design. You know, I really felt like Katsucon was outgrowing its convention space. But that raises the question, what can a convention that's defined by its venue actually do when that happens? Because let's be real, Katsucon is the Gaylord. The atrium, the gazebo, the balconies. Moving somewhere else would completely change the tone. And it might even kill off the cosplay culture that Katsucon uses to define itself. But I'm not saying there isn't a solution, because there is a convention that happens in the exact same space with almost the exact amount of attendees that utilizes a convention space in a way that doesn't leave you feeling overwhelmed. If we want to see a possible solution, we really don't have to look far. We can look at the convention that happens anywhere from a week to a month before Katsucon, and that's MAGFest. MAGFest is a gaming convention that takes place at the Gaylord National Resort. And unlike Katsucon, MAGFest is very transparent with the community and has capped badges at around 30,000 attendees, a number that's pretty close to Katsucon, a little bit larger. They tend to say that they have 25 to 27,000 attendees, but last year they did hit badge cap. So we're seeing more people at this convention than Katsucon's. But here's the thing. MAGFest really shows what Katsucon could be. With nearly double the programming, more vendors, more artists, MAGFest really uses the Gaylord space smartly. Every hallway, every turn has something interesting happening. Because of that, you don't end up with these dead, lifeless corridors like you see at Katsucon. Instead, attendees naturally spread out. The bottlenecks are way less intense. Now, MAGFest does deal with its fair share of con ghosters attending without a badge. I did that last year. But here's the difference. Last year, when ghosting started causing real crowd issues in that very atrium, MAGFest looked forward and planned. They announced that going forward, they'd be renting out the entire Gaylord hotel block, and only badge holders would be allowed in the room lottery, meaning potentially anyone staying in the Gaylord that weekend is guaranteed to be a MAGFest attendee. This allows staff to check badges at the door, and honestly, it does make the whole convention safer. No one can just walk in and slip into the atrium. Compare that to Katsucon, where I've had plenty of run-ins with normies, either staying at the Gaylord or just kind of wandering in off the street to see what's happening. I can't blame them. If I saw a bunch of people in costume going into an open hotel, I'd be like, what the heck is going on in there? And I'd go in too. But, usually that's harmless, but sometimes you just get people making really weird comments about your cosplay, or people who don't know about, cosplay is not consent, or people who just don't understand con rules and etiquette can make things really uncomfortable really fast for a cosplayer. 2026 is the first year that MAGFest is rolling out this restricted hotel access policy, and I will be staying there, and I will see how it shakes out. But if it works, honestly, it's something that Katsucon should really consider, as well as booking more hotels in their con block other than the Gaylord, but we'll get to that in a little bit. It would be a really quick fix for a lot of crowding and safety issues. And that brings us to the bigger picture of Katsucon. The real challenge isn't just numbers. It's figuring out how to evolve without losing the magic that makes it special in the first place. Katsucon puts everything it has into cosplay, but that means the other areas really start to suffer. Katsucon knows that the highlight of their convention is cosplay, and I don't know if they've just been choosing to rest on those laurels, but outside of cosplay, I find the rest of the convention to be shockingly underplanned and a little weak. So starting with Artist Alley. Of course, we do have to mention the infamous pipe sewer incident in 2025. A leaking pipe burst right above the alley, so showering artists and attendees with just the most foul-smelling water you can imagine. It was really bad, and the smell lingered for days. Katsucon's official spokesperson clarified on Twitter that this was gray water from the Gaylord's kitchen and not raw sewage, but honestly, that did not really make much of a difference. It was so gross. Slimy debris rained down onto tables, and the stench lingered for the rest of the weekend. Some artists, bless them, actually handed out dryer sheets. I saw artists taking these dryer sheets, putting them on, and then putting masks over so that they could stay in the artist alley, still sell their wares, but not pass out or get a headache from the stench. Now, in all fairness, this is not Katsucon's fault. I do not blame Katsucon for this at all. And honestly, I think the Katsucon staff handled it really well. So there's an artist I talked to, Hibiscus Stitch, and I'll link some of their stuff. I think they might have done a vlog on it even. They were one of the artists that were under the direct downpour and had to throw some of their merch away. But they mentioned on my vlog on Katsucon, which I will also link here because we're throwing links everywhere. Can I link in videos? If it's not here, it's in the description. But they commented on my video that the Gaylord had been contacting them and were sending checks for damaged merch and supplies at retail and for the hours of lost sales without fighting the artists on it. Honestly, the Katsucon staff advocating and everyone filming the leaks are why this has been so easy. And honestly, huge props to Katsucon for defending their artists and making sure the venue took responsibility. That is the kind of support that these artists really deserve. But once you look past the disaster, the actual artist alley itself raises some eyebrows. This was the very second thing I noticed about Katsucon the first time I went. First, I noticed how crowded it was that I didn't see in videos. Second, I noticed how small the artist alley was. For a convention with an estimated 25,000 attendees, Katsucon only hosts around 175 artists. Compare this to Fanime, which pulls a slightly larger 27,000 people and manages to showcase 221 artists. Or Anime Boston, which brings in around 22,000 attendees, smaller than Katsucon, but still manages to find room for 204 artists. By comparison, Katsucon's Artist Alley feels almost confusingly small. For many, it just doesn't match the scale or the energy of the rest of the con. It just doesn't always feel like Artist Alley feels like much of a priority. And this idea that anything outside the cosplay space feels secondary kind of bleeds into their programming as well. Looking at Saturday, just from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Katsucon lists 264 events, which sounds pretty impressive, but when you break it down, only around 30 to 40 of those are actual live program or gaming. The rest were cosplay photo shoots, anime video screenings, autograph sessions, or like things like that. So yeah, it's really cool to be able to go into a room, sit down and watch an episode of anime, but those rooms are more used as like in-between rest spaces. They're not really pulling attendees to go there. Now compare this to MAGFest, which again, takes place in the same venue. On its Saturday schedule, MAGFest offered 306 events in that same 8 to 8 time frame, but 128 of them were live programming and gaming. Compare that to the 30 to 40 from Katsucon. 128. That's over 4 times the amount of actual interactive content. There's more than 4 times the amount to do, each drawing attendees into those spaces. The results? MAGFest is spread out. It doesn't feel overcrowded. There's a ton to do, and if something is too much, you can just go do the next thing. Even the hallways have jam spaces set up. Like, there is always something happening at MAGFest. The result? Katsucon feels both crowded and empty at the same time. With fewer things to actually do, attendees swarm the limited programming that is available. But then when you step away, whole stretches of the convention feel lifeless, like there's nothing happening at all. It's a really strange dynamic. Personally, I think Katsucon is stuck in a pretty tricky position. They've invested everything they have into this cosplay aspect, but because of that, they're tied so deeply to the venue that moving or changing things too much would risk erasing the very culture that makes them unique and successful. But again, cosplay isn't something that people have to buy a badge for. And cosplay floods the same areas with attendees. So unless they really focus on programming and trying to reshape and restructure the convention, we're just gonna keep running into the same problems. And guests, like honored guests, really follow a similar pattern. In 2025, Katsucon hosted about 30 honored guests. Compare that to Otakon, which hosted 56, MAGFest, which hosted 55, Anime Boston, which hosted 40. The gaps become clear. And I mean, guests, okay, to be fair, guests are a little harder to measure against each other because it's a mix of voice actors, VTubers, cosplayers, creators, just prominent members of the community, and everyone values guests a little bit differently. But generally, fewer guests mean fewer autograph sessions, fewer panels, fewer opportunities for attendees to actually interact with the people they came to see. So it kind of reinforces it again. Outside of cosplay, Katsucon doesn't put the same weight into programming or guest offering as other cons of its size or even slightly smaller, which really just leads to the same issues of overcrowding and emptiness. Now, let's get on to something, well, the Katsucon thing. Let's get on to the Katsucon thing. What Katsucon lacks in programming or guest offerings, the attendees more than make up for. Gatherings are a huge part of this. Take, for example, the annual Katsucon Met Gala, now known as the Cosplay Couture Gala. So this is from their official Facebook page. The Cosplay Couture Gala, previously known as the Cosplay Met Gala, is a high fashion event that celebrates original geeky designs, ingenuity, and creative craftsmanship in the cosplay community. Currently, the in-person event is structured as a large-scale meetup and runway at Katsucon. The group is open to anyone. Cosplayers, photographers, even those who are just interested in attending and following the designer's progress. The meetup is coordinated and run by Cowbutt Crunchies, but we are looking for more people who would like to lend a hand as well. So this gala, the Facebook page was created in 2019, and the Instagram says that it has been happening for 6 years. But this event has really grown into one of the biggest annual gatherings and like a defining feature of Katsucon. It is thanks entirely to the dedication and passion of the cosplay community itself, though. It's not official programming run through Katsucon, it's attendees coming together about something they're passionate about and creating something special, which is great. It's amazing. But again, it's not Katsucon staff planning it. It's on the back of the attendees. And that same energy carries into nightlife. While Katsucon does offer some 18+ programming, the real heartbeat of the con after dark is the parties. Like many hotel-based conventions, you'll find room parties, crowded bars, and a lobby transformed into an impromptu dance floor. Cosplayers drink, dance, and hang out late into the night, giving the con a very festival-like feel. Interestingly, this is also the only time I've seen staff actually check badges to get into the gazebo level. I can't help but wonder if that is response to a widely circulated rumor in 2023 where someone allegedly pooped in the gazebo. The staff has never officially confirmed that this happened, but the Gaylord did evacuate the main lobby and for like an hour. And so the story has just really gone on and passed in the Katsucon legend. You'll have people who will equally defend that no one pooped in it, and people who will equally defend that it did. So that is just one of those convention mysteries. So really, what defines Katsucon? The true strength of this convention is not the official programming or guest list. It's the attendees themselves. The creativity, the gatherings, the parties, the culture that they've built around this con. Because at its core, the attendees are what truly defines Katsucon, and that's kind of always been the case. When your convention is built around a venue as iconic as the Gaylord, and when cosplay is the heart of the experience, everything else starts to revolve around those two things. The result is a convention where people and costumes are the main event. And if Katsucon is known for anything, it's the sheer scale, creativity, and artistry of the cosplay you'll see there. For better or worse, Katsucon is the cosplay convention on the East Coast, and the numbers really back that up. Across the weekend, there are a staggering 137 cosplay gatherings, and that doesn't even include the unofficial gatherings that take place. 57 on Friday, 55 on Saturday, and 25 on Sunday. Compare that to Otakon, which hosted 104 cosplay gatherings across the same time span, Fanime with 108, even MAGFest, which is a gaming convention but does have a strong cosplay presence, just ran 54 gatherings over their 4-day, 24-hour schedule. These numbers don't just show activity, they show how very central cosplay is to Katsucon's identity. Nearly every aspect of the weekend is shaped by cosplayers meeting, organizing, and showcasing their work. It is a convention built by cosplayers for cosplayers, and it shows in every hallway, photo shoot, and every gathering. And honestly, sometimes that focus is extraordinary. The level of creativity and craftsmanship displayed at Katsucon is unmatched, with the builds that really push the boundaries of what cosplay can be. But that same intensity kind of has a downside too. It can sometimes foster a culture of, I guess I would call it elitism, maybe unintentionally so. But Katsucon has long been seen as the convention to have your work noticed, and the Gaylord's sweeping atrium, gleaming marble, and natural lighting makes it one of honestly the most photogenic venues in the country. Seriously, I've never experienced a venue where the lighting looks so good from sunup to sundown with no added, just natural lighting. Because of that, cosplayers often arrive in established groups already, really locked into a tight schedule of photo shoots or content creation. It's really common at Katsucon for people to just be in the hallway filming TikToks or taking photos for social media and not really having time to interact with other cosplayers because they've got to go back up to their room and change into their next cosplay to do it all again. For newcomers, that atmosphere can feel really closed off, as if the event is designed for those who are already connected to the community or have some sort of following. If you're not going there knowing people already, it can feel really isolating. But the first time I went to Katsucon, I felt kind of like I wasn't welcome at that convention. I could have been in my own head a little bit because, you know, it's Katsucon. This is the creme de la creme of cosplay. And it fluctuates, like I said, depending on the cosplay, depending on the fandom, you'll have a different experience. You know, you really do see that focus on content creation, so it really does make it harder to make friends or interact. For me, generally, that's a pretty big negative towards the vibes of a convention because I really like talking to people cosplaying the same character as me or from the same fandom, or just like cosplaying in general. I love talking to cosplayers. But honestly, at Katsucon, it almost doesn't even matter that you can't make those connections as easily. Sure, sometimes the vibes shift and the energy in the crowd feels a little overwhelming, or I mean, even in some cases underwhelming. But my goodness, none of that takes away from the magic of just being there and soaking it all in. If you can find a place to just sit, step out of the flow of the crowd, and watch, you're gonna experience something incredible. People watching here isn't just fun. It's like attending a moving art show. Every hallway becomes a runway. Every staircase is a stage. And sometimes it's so crowded you can't see past the 3 people in front of you, but the sheer creativity on display is staggering. So many of the cosplayers there, especially on the upper levels near the gazebos, getting their photo shoots done, represent months, sometimes even an entire year or 2 of dedication. Intricate hand beating, elaborate armor builds, delicate fabrics layered into gowns that sweep across the marble floors of the Gaylord atrium. You can feel the pride in the way the cosplayers carry themselves, showing something they've poured their hearts into. And it's not just the craftsmanship, it's the passion. Everywhere you look, there's something unique, there's something unexpected. Cosplays inspired by blockbuster animes and games, sure, but also obscure side characters, bold original interpretations, mashups that exist purely because someone thought, why not? Wouldn't that be fun? That's what makes Katsucon so special. It's a place where people bring their absolute best work to be seen, to be celebrated, and to inspire. You could spend the entire day doing nothing but watching the convention unfold around you and never get bored. Every time you glance up, there's something new. A pair of friends coordinating the perfect cosplay duo, a professional photographer capturing an elaborate pose, a group breaking into laughter between shots, someone spinning dramatically in a handmade gown just because the atrium lights make it glow. It's alive and it's beautiful and it feels larger than life. That's the magic of Katsucon. It's more than just a convention. It's a showcase of creativity on a scale you rarely see anywhere else. And that's kind of why this convention is persisting. That's why, amidst the lack of programming, the small artist alley, the overcrowding, the weird issues with the Gaylord, that's why we keep showing up. Because the cosplay is there organically and it is so strong. And honestly, this elitism, or maybe just preoccupation, doesn't last the whole con. Once the sun sets and the natural lighting fades, the convention really starts to shift gears. The tone changes completely. Katsucon After Dark transforms into something much more open and inclusive. It's a party atmosphere where all those pressures melt away. People pull out special late night cosplays, and suddenly everyone, whether you're a seasoned competitor or in a store-bought outfit or cosplaying for the first time, suddenly we all feel like we're part of the same celebration. It does mean, though, that once again, the convention is really relying on the attendees to create the experience of Katsucon. And while that can be magical, the sheer creativity, the spontaneous gatherings, the once-in-a-lifetime group photos, it also puts the weight of the convention's reputation on its fans rather than its organizers. Katsucon thrives because of its community, not because of its infrastructure. That's both the greatest strength and the greatest weakness of this convention. Because if the community ever falters, or if the venue can no longer support the convention, Katsucon has very little to fall back on. And we might be looking at a venue no longer supporting the crowds and the culture sooner rather than later. This section of the video is going to be partially what I noticed when I was at Katsucon 2025, but it's also going to be speculation on Katsucon 2026 and the apparently struggles that Katsucon has been having with the Gaylord. None of this is confirmed. Like I said, Katsucon is not a very transparent convention, so at the time of filming this, no official statements have been released. So please take this with a grain of salt. But there has been a lot of discussion in the community about the 2026 hotel block, and it's raising a lot of eyebrows. Normally, Katsucon announces its Gaylord hotel block in late June, with reservations opening in early-ish July. That's been the pattern for years. But for 2026, things have been a little bit murkier. On Reddit and Facebook, fans have noticed this delay, with one person recalling that a staff member replied to an Instagram comment saying they're still settling things with the hotel. Others pointed out that we're already way past the usual window and no official information has gone out on the main Katsucon channels. There's a lot of discussion happening, and it's causing a lot of confusion and speculation. Is this just a late announcement? Is this a sign of tension between the Katsucon and Gaylord? No one really knows for sure. But what is clear is that the hotel block is one of the things the attendees watch the most closely. And when communication breaks down there, it feeds into a bigger narrative that the Gaylord might not be so thrilled about continuing to host a convention that brings so much chaos to its hall. Now, a big piece of this is how Katsucon handles hotel bookings compared to the other Gaylord conventions. Unlike MAGFest, which books nearly every surrounding hotel in the National Harbor, and even this year is expanding across the bridge into Virginia with a shuttle service, Katsucon only books the Gaylord itself. This decision leaves thousands of attendees scrambling for housing, and it creates the perception that the convention isn't supporting the community as well as it could. MAGFest strategy shows long-term planning and a willingness to adapt for growth, while Katsucon's narrower approach makes it look reactive and disorganized in comparison. This has fueled new rumors for 2026. Whispers that Katsucon may not even have access to the Gaylord on Thursday, February 12th, day 0 of the con. If true, that would cut into one of the most important days for early arrivals and photo shoots, and it would shrink the already limiting room block. The con official dates are the Thursday the 12th through Sunday the 15th, or they have been traditionally in the past, Thursday through Sunday, with many guests choosing to stay an extra night in the hotel until Monday the 16th. But a quick look at the Gaylord's public events calendar shows multiple groups packed in around those same dates. Most alarmingly, a policy and issues forum booked from February 9th to 12th, so the Thursday that Katsucon is supposed to start, and then an advanced thermal networks convention running from the 17th to the 20th. While none of this necessarily confirms a shortened Katsucon, it does paint a picture of a venue that is busy, juggling multiple major clients back to back, and a convention that hasn't planned ahead to meet the needs of its attendees. That's why the lack of clarity about the 2026 room block stings so much. Fans are left wondering whether they'll even have a day 0, and whether the Gaylord is quietly tightening the leash on the con that already stretches its patience. And I mean, even without these extreme incidents, the cosplay chaos itself contributes to the tension. The lobby gets overcrowded day and night. There are widely circulated reports of people defecating in the gazebo area. The cosplayers climb all over the venue for the perfect shot. Fans see the atrium as the heart of Katsucon, the place to get dream shots, group photos, and cinematic TikToks. But for the Gaylord, it's just their lobby. It's a public shared hotel space meant for all guests. and it really fuels a long list of rules and restrictions. And we kind of saw that a lot in 2025 with how the Gaylord handled the convention. Every person staying at the Gaylord was given a list of rules when they checked in. It was sitting right in their hotel room. And the signage popping up around the convention center telling cosplayers to not go on rocks, to not set up tripods, restricting areas, all kind of pointed to an irritated venue.
Chat, I didn't even go into the gay baby jail incident where Brittany Griner, a basketball star who had spent a year detained in Russia, found duct tape left over from Katsucon with the words gay baby jail written on it, and not knowing the meme, took it as a threat. Police were involved and an investigation was launched. Just another on the long list of random Katsucon disasters.
And props are another major point of contention. With public hotel space, the Gaylord must be strict. No oversized weapon, no sharp or fragile materials, and sometimes no props at all in certain areas. Understandably, cosplayers who've spent months crafting elaborate builds feel pretty frustrated when their creations can't even leave the hotel room. All of this points to a core issue: communication breakdown. Katsucon is one of the most cosplay-focused conventions in the US, and the Gaylord isn't always prepared for what that means. Staff rotates, rules change, and enforcement sometimes feels inconsistent. Sometimes cosplayers are aggressively shooed from one location, other times people camp that same spot for hours without issues. The inconsistency only fuels frustration. At the end of the day, the Gaylord is not a private convention center. It's a luxury hotel and resort that has to balance conferences, weddings, and tourists alongside Katsucon's 25,000 badge-holding attendees and countless ghosting attendees. That mix creates friction, and year by year, you can kind of feel that relationship getting strained. The Gaylord brings the backdrops, but it also brings the headaches. And right now, with the lack of communication about the 2026 room block adding fuel to the fire, it sort of feels like both sides are reaching their limit. The Gaylord gives Katsucon its magic, but unless something shifts, both con and venue may be asking the question, is this still worth it? And honestly, that's the real contrast. MAGFest is growing, adapting, and securing its future by expanding its housing and planning for attendees' needs. But Katsucon feels like it's stuck in survival mode, clinging to the Gaylord, clinging to the attendees to define the experience, but not really meeting the demands of its own community. If Katsucon doesn't evolve soon, we might really be in a lot of trouble.
We interrupt this program for an important news announcement.
Hi, it's me, it's Editing Brave. So literally while I was editing this video, Katsucon tweeted. They made a tweet. So guess what? There is a room block, and it opens in approximately like 8 days. All Katsucon said was multiple delays this year due to coordinating with other events and the Gaylord to guarantee that they had as many rooms as possible. And the link is going to be posted 15 minutes prior to opening the block. No other information went out about a lottery system. No other information was given at all. But it does seem like the rumors are true that Katsucon waited too long to book the hotel and only booked it for the Friday and not the Thursday, leaving that open and just assuming that another convention wouldn't take that space. So we actually don't know if Katsucon is going to be opening their hotel block for Thursday or not. They didn't say that in the tweet. We are going to have to see after they open it up. So we'll see. At its core, Katsucon excels because it puts cosplay front and center. It's a stage. It invites attendees to step into their characters and showcase all their hard work. The convention has a way of making cosplay feel larger than life, turning ordinary hallways into runways and corners into cinematic backdrops. It's not an event, it's an immersive experience where every angle offers a new story to see and capture. And, another major strength is the community-driven events. Official program is limited, but the attendees have filled the gaps in spectacular ways. The attendee-organized events are growing into Katsucon's most anticipated gatherings, like the Cosplay Couture Gala. And similar grassroots gatherings and impromptu photo shoots make the weekend feel participatory and alive. Katsucon also attracts big-name cosplayers and creators, lending prestige and drawing attention to the convention. When these names walk the floor, they elevate the experience for everyone, inspiring attendees and setting high standards for craftsmanship. And it also means you might have a chance to meet your favorite creator organically on the floor of this convention and see their works in person. And on top of that, the con showed its commitment to supporting artists when disasters struck, coordinating with the Gaylord to make the recovery from the pipe burst incident smooth and fair. And beyond the structured events, the nightlife, the late night room parties, crowded bars, casual social gatherings, it transforms the club into an inclusive celebration. Katsucon thrives because of the attendees, the creativity, the energy, and the passion of its fans. That is its biggest draw and its most enduring strength. But it can't do everything. Perhaps the biggest challenge is how the convention relies on the attendees to make the experience. They don't organize the convention space to help fix the crowding and safety. The hallways are frequently overpacked. Mobility is difficult and even dangerous sometimes. By contrast, there's MAGFest, which utilizes the space much more strategically. They spread programming out throughout the hotel. They actively manage attendee flow. They look ahead to improve safety and keep the event accessible and enjoyable for everyone. Katsucon isn't investing in its programming. The artist alley and programming are small. It is cramped and underdeveloped and leaves large portions of the convention space underutilized. The lack of official programming leaves attendees swarming few key panels while other areas remain empty, unlike MAGFest, which prioritizes interactive sessions. Communication, rule enforcement, these are all Katsucon's weaknesses. Inconsistent policies on props, photography, access to popular spaces, delayed or unclear announcements like the 2026 hotel block situation. It's just confusion and frustration. And it's hard not to compare it to MAGFest when you see a convention that is actively adapting its policies. And MAGFest organizers ran a Reddit Ask Me Anything so that there could be a staff member right there to answer any questions you might have. They are transparent and doing what they can to invest in the attendee. Meanwhile, Katsucon does not invest in the attendee, it expects the attendee to invest in it. Katsucon needs the attendees to run the convention. And its reliance on the Gaylord aesthetic creates both this cosplay magic but also vulnerability. When a venue gives the convention its unique identity, it ties that convention to a single location, making it dependent on hotel cooperation and physical space in a way that honestly MAGFest avoids by balancing venue limitations with smart programming and logistics. Ultimately, Katsucon's biggest challenge is not the numbers or the venue size. It's figuring out how to maintain the magic that makes it special while addressing the structural, logical, and programming issues that MAGFest and other conventions have already figured out. If Katsucon can adapt some of these examples while preserving the cosplay-centric culture, it could evolve into a convention that's both breathtaking and sustainable. Katsucon is a cosplay convention, but it can't only be a cosplay convention. When cosplay comes from the attendees, when it's held in areas that don't belong to Katsucon, if Katsucon ever has to change its venue, if Katsucon ever loses the Gaylord, the convention would fall apart. Katsucon needs its organizers to look forward and invest in the attendee and the experience. We can't just keep letting the attendees be the ones that make cosplay magical. We need this convention to invest in itself and in us, because it's worth keeping this convention alive and running. Katsucon 2025 showed us a convention at a crossroads. On one hand, it's an unmatched stage for cosplay, where hallways become runways, atriums turn into photo studios, and the creativity of the fans transforms the Gaylord into a living, breathing art exhibit. But on the other hand, it's a convention wrestling with its own success, overcrowded, limited programming beyond cosplay, and an increasingly tense relationship with its venue, highlighting the growing pains of a show that's outgrown its home in more than one ways. But here's the thing, Katsucon's magic isn't just the architecture or the panels or even the guests. It's the people who show up and bring their crafts and their passion and their community to life. Whether you're a veteran cosplayer or a first-time attendee, or someone hoping to just finally meet the creators and idols you've admired from afar, Katsucon offers that, sometimes in a once-in-a-lifetime experience. But for Katsucon to thrive in the years ahead, it will really need to balance growth with sustainability, learning from other conventions like MAGFest without losing what makes it uniquely Katsucon. Even with its flaws, the convention endures because the cosplay community refuses to let it fade. Because at its heart, Katsucon isn't just a convention, it's a stage, it's a gathering, it's a celebration of creativity that's larger than life. And for anyone who's walked in its atriums, shared in that energy, or just caught a glimpse of a dream cosplay in motion, there's a magic you really don't forget. Ultimately, I want to see Katsucon thrive because it's a convention unlike any other, and it's so clear that so much love and effort goes into making it happen, from the staff and the volunteers to the artists and the cosplayers, the attendees, that just bring it to life year after year. And I just want to see it continue and thrive. But unless something changes, Katsucon is just going to keep running into the same problems over and over again. And if Katsucon isn't willing to adapt or look towards other conventions who've already solved the issues they're having, this convention might be in crisis. Ultimately, I want Katsucon to thrive. There's really not a place where you can see cosplay like you can see it at Katsucon, with such an emphasis on these builds that people have made themselves. And I just want to see it continue. I really wanted to preserve some of the history of this convention. I really wanted to talk about what made it special, but I also wanted to talk about what I was concerned about and what I hope that this convention changes in the future. Because if something doesn't change, I don't know what the sustainability of this convention really is. But, you know, I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into Katsucon 2025. If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe for more convention analysis and cosplay content. I will probably be doing a history of MAGFest video next, just because I think it complements this video so well. I also think it might be my next convention coming up, so it kind of works out perfectly. I'm really excited to see how this new hotel block situation goes. And I'll be working on more of these context videos now that the convention season is kind of winding down a little bit. I'll be going in depth on more conventions in the future, so if there's one you really would want me to cover next, please drop your suggestion in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. I want to just preserve as much history of these conventions as I can, and share it with you guys, because it is so fascinating and interesting and cool, and I love seeing where we've been and where we're going. Also, a special thank you goes out to the Internet Archive for all their invaluable resources. Oh my gosh, and a big thank you to my friend Austin, who helped me navigate that website. I'll link their socials below as well. And of course, a huge thank you to all the Redditors on the convention forums who helped me track down previous year's programming. Your contributions made this research so much better. I had people on Reddit go through their old iPod Touches and screenshot and send me videos of deleted guidebooks. And that's all stuff that would have just been lost. So I will be uploading everything that I have to the Internet Archive so that more of us can check out our amazing con history. And I will put links to that in my description as well. Check it out, there's so much cool stuff out there. I really do hope that you enjoyed this video. Clearly, anime conventions are something that I'm really passionate about, and I'm really excited to make these kind of videos. I hope you guys like them, because I want to talk so much more about it. But thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope I get to see you again in the future.